You're listening to the Baha'i World News Service.
Now live local house of worship.
Lingkod kay Bahá'í. In this episode, we hear from Janice Vandendoel, a member of a Baha'i agency at the local level.
Hope is not just a dream that maybe someday things will get better, but it's actually closely connected to a vision of what is possible.
Farah Guchani Rosenberg, a member of the Board of Counselors in the United States.
Whether it's religious or racial or ethnic or educational separation or wealth. Imagine a society so diverse, yet they feel oneness among themselves.
Ken Bowers, a member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States.
What we're hearing is a sense of agency among the people who themselves can read their own reality, take action to improve that reality, which is a very profound way of thinking about social change.
And Yovania Dektiar, also member of a Baha'i agency at the local level.
How can we all find a common purpose together, even as we are all coming from various backgrounds and various neighborhoods?
Together, they share accounts of how in neighborhoods across the United States, young people are getting to know their neighbors, forming friendships across different backgrounds, and finding ways to serve their communities. These youth draw on experiences they've gained through the Training Institute, Baha'i moral and spiritual educational programs that help them develop both personally and in their capacity to contribute to community life. From the Baha'i World News Service, this is In Conversation, a collective exploration of the practical application of Baha'i principles to the building of peaceful societies.
So Janice, about a year ago, you moved to Louisville. So tell us about the experience that you and your husband and kids have had there and who you're getting to know and what the local community is like.
It was really striking, how in American communities, even people that live very closely together don't necessarily know each other. And just that act of building bridges, forming friendships, had a really profound effect on how it felt to be in that neighborhood. Over the course of 4-6 months, we would go outside, our children knew other children, we were able to talk with other people and form these bonds of friendship.
What are some of the characteristics of the young people that you see there? In other words, what are their aspirations when you have conversations with them? What are they interested in talking about and getting involved in?
So in our neighborhood, there's a real desire among parents for their children to have opportunities, to have access to education, to really build a new life in this country. But there are also fears about some of the social forces and the effects that those are having on young people. And the youth that we have met really want to fulfill those aspirations. They have a longing to pursue their education, but there are also things that they struggle with.
And this is probably something that we see across many neighborhoods across the US, that there is a lot of diversity, but somehow there's a common aspirations that, parents want to have a better life for their children, and that is often through education. And I think what we've seen in different parts of the country is that parents respond well to this idea of spiritual education. And so they want to continue that for not only for themselves, but then also for their children. And they want to be part of communities where this is also something that's explored together. And so I don't know if there's more examples that maybe you have seen or any of you have seen that you'd like to talk about.
Yes, I think one of the observation we have in various spaces, whether in the neighborhood or suburbia area, people are really seeking true friendship. So when you mention about friendship, it's really sincere conversations that is connecting to the thoughts and realities of people. I think this sense of isolation is very, very real, but what we are seeing is that when friends are learning how to converse, how to listen to one another, and truly care, that sincere friendship is then forging certain level of relationships that is based on trust and respect and love for one another. So then that in exchange allows a new kinds of community life to emerge. And in this community life, as you mentioned, there is in the heart of it is this spiritual dimension, which bonds all these diverse people around worship, for example, sharing prayers with one another. It's becoming a natural, a natural effort. Uh, when neighbors developing that kind of a friendship and trust, and when they are hearing beautiful words in these prayers, truly they are seeing something hopeful.
Very interesting. You know, a community of sorts begins to form as families come together, pray together. The experience of that prayer and that interaction with the Baha'i teachings then begins to have a subtle but very important effect. And so their aspirations, which are legitimately for their own education to begin with, then begin to expand because they see themselves as members of a community, and they see their sense of purpose as being fulfilled in helping others also to advance, which is a very important thing if you think about it. And there's one wonderful example from Atlanta that came to light recently, where there was a group of youth who were involved in the Institute. And of course, they were engaged very much in the devotional life among themselves and with their families. They, many of them were also serving as mentors to children, as children's class teachers or as animators of people just a little bit younger than they were. And there's just a wonderful testimonial that I'm going to read to you because one of the youth wrote this beautiful little entry into her journal. And what it's about was the group of youth decided to go visit the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. Now, the Legacy Museum is a museum that talks about the history of slavery and Jim Crow and continuing racial prejudice in the United States. So I'll just read a very short passage from her journal. So this is an African-American young woman in her teens writing this. Visiting the memorial and museum was eye-opening. So often have there been injustices I am aware of, but their profound implications weren't as clear. Society has taught people to live with injustice and not question why we hurt or oppress people. By seeing the magnitude of oppression that occurred in the United States and beyond, I was encouraged to want to prevent further tragedies from happening. Similarly, being surrounded by other youth sparked more reflection, where we could reflect on how to change the world. Some of these discussions were very simple, like making sure your friend group is diverse, educating yourself on the history, and extending loving kindness to all people. Other more systematic approaches, like hosting race amity devotionals, participation in children's classes and junior youth groups, were also commonly mentioned as strategies which can improve the spiritual health of a community. Changing the way humanity interacts with each other and learning that the unity of humankind is essential to effectively solving the ills that plague the world today becomes evident from studying the writings and guidance.
Interesting how this conception of social change as being something that we all can contribute to is starting to emerge. I think before we thought that, for a community to change or transform, it would take a long time, that it was a very complicated process, that one needed to develop many different capacities, pursue higher education, and then it would be possible to make change. But I think what we're seeing is actually even just visiting someone in their home and having a conversation about their aspirations and concerns can give rise to simple actions that have a profound effect on the culture of the community.
This concept of worship and service is such a powerful concept that actually they go hand in hand. And what we are seeing is that neighborhoods like that when prayer becomes part of their many spaces, whether children's classes or a group of youth coming together in any of these spaces, when friends are sharing prayers, actually it creates a certain culture that provides a condition for transformation. A collective sense emerges. Even what we are seeing in number of neighborhoods where immigrant population, extremely isolated group of people are mixing with another racially diverse group of people where never before were interacting. And through these spaces and their children's common spiritual education classes and community gatherings, they are now becoming one large family. Recently, in one neighborhood, their community center was taken away, and because they're hosting numerous children and youth activities in this center, groups of mothers came together and they wrote a letter to the management. They wrote, this center is so critical for the development of their children, the youth, and the community life. They didn't receive a response from the management. Then they decided all ages, children, youth, and adults, to visit the mayor in order to present this concern. And mayor was quite impressed and decided that definitely she will intervene.
Very interesting. It's a haven with a new definition, because a haven in this sense is not a hideout. It's not a place to go away and get away from the trouble of the world, but it's where people come together reading and studying the Baha'i writings. They become active, they become empowered to then effect change in their communities. And so it's a refuge of a kind, but it's the kind that's dynamic and active.
I think what we see is that there is a pattern of community life that's starting to emerge. So whether it's a community space, whether it's classes so that I can better my language skills, whether it's offering a space for youth to come together to do their homework, or how do you get a driver's license? It builds relationships. You know, it's like the whole community is thinking together about how to better their condition.
Which is a pretty distinctive thing, because often when we think about social action, what we think is something that a group of people with resources will do for another group of people, perhaps with less resources. But what you're describing and what we're hearing is, no, a sense of agency among the people who themselves can read their own reality, take action to improve that reality, which is a very profound way of thinking about social change.
And I think that that's so powerful, you know, that I'm not just a need, but that the individual has these capacities that can be developed, and that everyone can make a contribution.
In fact, in one gathering that a group of young people were reflecting, the question was asked, what sustains you to be a mentor to middle school age youth? These youth were 18 years old. And he reflected and he said, you know, I was once middle school age youth, and I attended this youth program, and it changed my way of looking at my life and the direction in my neighborhood, a neighborhood which had violence. So this participation in this program literally changes his participation in his education. So his reflection was that it made such a big impact in my life, and now I want to give it back to those younger than myself. But better than that, he could envision that if he can help those younger than himself, then they will become like him and will be the mentor for those that come after them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wonderful point. And we were all together in your hometown just a few weeks ago in North Carolina, and we all had the chance to meet with about 50 or 60 youth who have been in this process for quite some time, and clearly whose sense of identity has been shaped by their experience. And so it'd be interesting to hear from you, because you know them so much better, what it is about this process that really has changed their perspective on themselves and on life, and how has it been for them to go through this sort of a transformation in their own selves?
So many of the youth in our hometown, through the study of the Bahá'í teachings, come to really understand that their true purpose lies not only in bettering their own selves, but also to contribute to the life of society. And so, as they study, part of that study is that they also get to do acts of service. But then, when they come to do this and persevere and really try to put into practice what they are learning, they truly see the impact of this educational program on the lives of young people. And they realize that they themselves have a role to play in this. And so when they see that, I think that has a profound effect on them. These youth actually want to dedicate their lives to their own community, where they were raised, where their friends are, where they see themselves in the younger children. But they're also bringing their families into this process. So we have an example of a youth who wanted to start this process in her own neighborhood. And so she asked her mom. And with her mom, they went and visited families that they all already knew because they already had these relationships. And so they tapped into that potential and really created a small team of friends who now started, talking about this educational program for children, started talking about how we can have community gatherings that will help better the lives of all, to bring a sense of togetherness. There are many conversations that proliferate in those spaces. But somehow, because these conversations are about trying to reach maybe common understanding, because these youth have been part of these institute courses, they're able to have really hard conversations around gender identity, around race unity questions, but in a way that's not polarizing, but really they're seeking to find some truth. Like, how can we all find a common purpose together, even as we are all coming from various backgrounds and various neighborhoods?
Whether it's religious or racial or ethnic or educational separation or wealth. Imagine a society so diverse, yet they feel oneness among themselves as one great family. And they are concerned about each other's well-being. They're concerned about each other's children's well-being. So I could see that already we start getting glimpses of such society in a small scale in the neighborhoods, and it is happening.
I also think this idea of universal participation, that somehow there's a place for everybody to contribute something. Because it's not just because we're opening the spaces so wide that everybody's contribution is valuable and everybody has a part to play.
There's also there's a concept that, when we talk about hope, that hope is not just a vague longing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or, a dream that maybe someday things will get better, but it's actually closely connected to a vision of what is possible.
You can't know what to do, I think, unless you know what story you're a part of. And the insight we have from Baha'u'llah is that we are part of the story of the maturation of humanity. We're living in an age when humanity is destined to be united, to create a just, peaceful, prosperous society where everyone is a valued contributor and participant and beneficiary. And this will advance on and on and on into the reaches of time.
You've been listening to In Conversation, a podcast series from the Baha'i World News Service. For more podcasts and stories, visit bwns.org.